Right, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. A little bit later than I was intending, but we're going to try and do a little bit of something with these Osgiliath terrain sprues. So, hopefully, between the other cameras, you can have a little bit better idea about what's going on. But I probably should pay attention to, the instructions, and I might look at them later. But I'm just going to cut everything off, and while I do that, I'll sort it all out later because how hard can it be, alright? But while I do that, I'll talk a little bit about what else was happening today in regards to Middle Earth. So today was Entmoot. It's the second time it's been run. It was run at the Game Centre at Campbelltown today. Last year it was run here. In the end, I think there was 27 sign-ups, but in the end it ended up being, with some COVID dropouts and whatnot, 24 attendees, so it worked out quite nicely. Jonathan Byrne was the TO. I do have a little bit of footage and some pictures of all the armies that I will try and do something with. Though I probably wasn't really feeling the best at the start of the day, and definitely didn't set up to film as well as we possibly could have. So I could speed this up, I suppose, later too, but you won't be able to hear me talk over all this crap. So yeah, it was a good day. I did not actually hang around for the end. I left towards the later half of the third round, just so I get a better run getting home, because it's over an hour away. But I did have a little bit of a chat exchange with Adam to find out the goss on who got what. So I don't know if anyone got any ties or anything, or not on the top tables at least. But it was one of those tournaments, given there was 24 people and only 3 rounds, that were likely to end up with multiple people on 3 wins. As anyone who pays any attention to tournaments would know, that can be problematic. You can't just declare one person the ultimate winner based on they got straight wins and no one else did. So you end up trying to do like some sort of point system, which is good in a tournament like that. Of course, if you've got something, that's big and, flashy, and there's enough people / enough rounds, I personally think like some kind of knockout is definitely the way to go. But on the other hand, I'm the guy that thinks that we should have an Australian league, and New South Wales one. So anyway, I digress slightly. So in the end, it was likely that there was going to be multiple people on 3 wins, and in fact I think there was, but I wasn't there. I do know that some of those people in that last round who were on 2 wins and could potentially get a 3rd one was Andrew Coleman. Big surprise there, as anyone who knows Andrew Coleman kind of knows that it's quite common for him to be in a position where he's playing for a podium position, if not first, come the last round. Though, as anyone who's played him will tell you, whether you win or lose, it's always a pleasure to play Andrew Coleman. He's a gentleman, and there's probably no one better than him for debriefing after a game and giving you some advice on how you could have improved. Maybe the mistakes you made, the calls that he wouldn't have made, or a call that he would have made in a certain situation. And then so if you're mindful of that advice and then carry it forward next time, you probably end up doing a lot better for it. I would definitely have to credit Mr. Coleman with one of the major influences on making me a better player over the years. I have managed to get a couple of wins against the man, but if you you want to be fair about it, I've taken some pretty filthy lists in order to do it. There was one time I took full advantage of the fact that being a maths teacher and a maths nerd, I can't help myself on this one, but full advantage of the fact that the game, while created in England, typically seems to be an imperial system. You know, I like metric because, you know, why not? But anyway, we play this game where we, you know, move 6 inches and, you know, back away an inch, a full inch, and unfortunately for the game designers, they chose to, instead of putting the models on inch bases, they put them on 25mm bases. And, well, I know some TOs might say it's common sense, and I'm like, well, if you take everything else in a rule book at face value, then you've got to take that too, and the game designers are well aware of the difference. Therefore, the base is 25mm mathematically, so you don't need to measure that because that's just the base that it should be on. And the control zone for a model like Tom Bombadil is 1 inch. So if you place all your little sneaky models around Tom Bombadil in base contact, then it just so happens that your opponent can't charge you unless you allow it. And generally speaking, you won't allow it. It does have a couple of drawbacks, and I'll be very fair. Andrew Coleman tried to utilize all those against me in that game, which was more than fair. I think he had Goblin Town that particular game. And we were playing in an event here. I think it was Andreas's event. A triple plus years ago, but anyway, it was that. And I okayed it with Andreas first. Obviously, that was going to be okay. And if I was to lose a combat, because, you know, sometimes I'd go into combat, then I would have to wear it. I think it was shortly after, you know, we've got all these Allies Matrix sort of things, so I took some stupid Red Alliance. If I kind of remember what I had, it was Tom, obviously. It was Gandalf the Grey. Why? So I could have Blinding Light up. I know Tom does a lot of things that, you know, make it hard, but Gandalf makes it hard too. And Tom can't protect everyone from all shooting attacks. So yeah, we need Gandalf for that. Also a little bit of magic just to annoy the opponent was pretty good. Pretty sure I had Aragorn in there. Why? Just because you want, you know, an infinite amount of might if you're going to play stupid games like this. And I took young Bilbo. Why? Because he gets a ring and doesn't get any of the negative effects of it. So I could halve the opponent's fight value. I could have infinite might. I could strike up. I could transfix them, Sorcerer's Blast them. Not to mention, I could spend Tom's Will to get all my resources back if I did happen to run into a bit of trouble. But yeah, if I go into combat and I lose, well, I'm trapped, and I could cop a little bit of a hit there. But that's what Tom's there to heal up from. Anyway, that was one of the times that I beat Mr. Coleman, and it was well, memorable to me. I definitely am a bit of an a-hole for doing it. Yet, if the game designers were so adamantly against it, they could, in fact, cover it in FAQ, of which they do 2 a year, and not do things like refer to, you know, page 10 or whatever it was of, you know, playing the spirit of the game and, you know, common sense and any of that. Doesn't matter. Rules are rules. But, you know, Andrew, as always, cops it on the chin. Is a champion about it. I tried to do other, you know, filthy wins against him, but to no avail. I have lost with Sauron against him multiple times. Makes me quite sad. there was, I think one time it was at HobbitCon, well before that last one I was mentioning. And I go into the final. I'm playing I think back when Sauron was 375 points or something, and I had a Morgul Knight with him. And yeah, final round of the tournament, I'm actually in first place. It's not bad. But, that means I'm paired up against Andrew Coleman. That's not good. So, Andrew had the Knight of Umbar and, probably a whole bunch of cavalry with some bows and other crap that I didn't really want to know about. Anyway, lo and behold, he ends up matching my fight value, winning the roll-off, or I probably just sucked at rolling, I can't remember which, and he had me trapped against a building, and, mathematically speaking, I think I should have probably survived that, one little hiccup, and, next round I have a chance to try and smash him back. But no, he actually asked me the odds because I'm a maths nerd. I forget what the odds were at the time, but you could kill me, but it's not likely. Well, lo and behold, he killed me, and that was the end of me. So I ended up losing that tournament. Funny story about that, though. Adam, who was the TO at the time, was so confident that I was going to get a podium spot. I probably would have been the first ever podium I got. He'd actually wrote a certificate out with my name on it, and then it turns out that because Andrew Coleman beat me so thoroughly, I wasn't getting a podium spot at all. I had dropped down to, I think, 4th or 5th. So that was the end of me in that tournament. There was another time I had Sauron. I think it must have been a reasonable point size, because I had Sauron and 20-something orcs. So I was actually trying to give, my opponent a chance to beat on things, and I get Coleman in Contest of Champions. You're really thinking, well, I have a pretty good shot at winning that. I actually thought I had a reasonable shot too. But, I was playing Coleman. Contest of Champions, I thought, oh, well, I'll be sporting and put all these orcs up the front, and, we can have our leaders fight each other. I'll stomp him, and then we can have some fights, it'll be fun. Well, as the luck of the dice going, and I should add, Andrew Coleman's dice are just unreal. I mean, the guy's skilled, but I dead set years ago offered him money for his dice. I don't know if he remembers that. We were at Cherrybook Tech at the time, playing a practice game. But, I think they got a lot of sentimental value to him. Either that or he's loaded them up. But, he wouldn't have done that. He was playing Numenor, and he had Elendil and Isildur and, a bunch of dudes. I don't think he had any captains. I don't think he could afford the points after those two big hitters. So anyway, I lose the roll-off. Isildur and Sauron end up in a beef. Well, what do you know? Sauron ends up killing him. Big surprise there. I think it might not have taken one turn, but anyway, I killed him. Meanwhile, Elendil is ploughing, 2+ models a turn, and killing them, slingshotting, killing them, slingshotting, and just generally trying to keep Sauron locked down. And I just can't win a priority to save my life, to lock him down with a bit of magic, although he's not easy to do that to either. And I almost got a spot where, after some combats happened, that I thought I might be able to sneak around and slyly engage him from the other direction. So I got Andrew to measure it out, and I was just off being within 6, with control zones and stuff. So I couldn't do that. I was trying to get to a spot where I could hurl something into him, dismount him, slow him down. Just couldn't get the angles. And yeah, Andrew proceeded to thump the crap out of me. So, can't remember if he won that event. I think that might have been, I'm not sure if it was a Masters, like preliminary or not, but I think whether Andrew won it or not, I don't know. But it came down to him and Liam, I'm pretty sure. And I think Liam might have not submitted his list on time, and that might have cost him some points. Can't remember what the players pack said. It's a while ago. But it does lead me to my point for today. And that is, so Andrew, going into the final round, I think Adam told me the scores. I probably could have looked at Jonathan's screen because I was there, helping. But there was 1 point in it between Andrew and the two people that were slightly above him. I think it was like 39. They had 39, he had 38 points of whatever the total was. So it was very close. So I was like, well, Andrew could win this if he gets a big win and the others don't get big wins or, get a loss. Something like that. And turns out that Andrew probably did get a big win. Adam gave me the final scores. There was a few points in it, but it wasn't going to be big enough to actually get the victory. But here's the catch. There was a nice little line in the players' pack that said something along the lines of, if you submit your list late, you are going to lose 5 points. Now look, I don't know how I want to address that as, what's the right or wrong way. As a TO, many times, one of the biggest frustrations that we face is players not reading your pack, following the instructions of your pack, basically just doing as they're told. The teacher in me, don't get me wrong, kids don't always do as they're told either, but sometimes they're more compliant than gamers. So I do think there should be something in it for doing as asked, submitting it on time. There's a reason that the TO often asks that. Maybe they want to release the list prior so we can discuss them. That was in fact the case here. So there's a very valid reason. And so there was also some extra rules with Entmoot. So if you had not had a list that wasn't like super duper heroes, but you had some crappy ones, so I think Fortitude and below, your weakest hero, and if it was tied you could pick or something, could get the end draft, and that enabled them to get some kind of bonus. Pretty sure if it was a good army, that they could add one to their defense as one of the options. Can't actually recall what the other one was, but the reason I remember the defense part is that I took an army along if I had to, if there was odd numbers that I needed to play to save Jonathan from having to do it. And the army I took was White Council, so Saruman, Gandalf the Grey, and Galadriel, Lady of Light. Now, if you look at the book, those are heroes of legend and heroes of valor. But if you read the FAQ, Galadriel, Lady of Light, actually gets knocked down to a hero of Fortitude, which means I could give her the end draft and bump her weak defense up to 4. Now, look, she ain't going to lose combats too often, period. She's not going to get shot at often because, she's basically got blinding light but better up all the time. Well, unless she runs out of will. So, she's going to be pretty good, but hey, why not bump her up to 4 defense? So, yeah, that was one of the things there. If you were evil, you could definitely bump up their... I think you could bump up their strength and something else. Look, I didn't actually play, so, and the rules that didn't affect me were things that didn't have to be, absorbed. And I was not the TO of the event. But, yeah, I did have to play my army in the end anyway, but I could have been a sneaky little bugger with it. But yeah, you had to submit the list. And if you didn't submit the list, and if you didn't read the pack and submit the list correctly, you know, saying who's getting the end draft and whatever, then you haven't submitted the list correctly, and you wouldn't get the points. Well, it turns out that someone submitted their list. Yeah, if I'm getting the story right, because I didn't submit the list to me, the list had to be chased up for the list. There was an error or something in the list. And then so those 2 points are like on them. Then something happened, and they couldn't get the list that they were originally going to bring because someone got COVID. You know, and we've got to make exceptions for COVID. Fair. So they ended up bringing an entirely different list from an entirely different faction. When they made that list up, I honestly don't know if that was before or after the draw had been done, so they would then know who they're playing and what army they're playing today. So, I mean, if that list was made after, that's pretty crook to begin with, because they could certainly have given themselves an edge in that first game, but I don't know if that was the case or not, because the list was not submitted to me. But, however you want to look at it, it did mean that the list was submitted late. And because it was submitted late, that meant I needed to have 5 points deducted. It wasn't like a point a day or anything, like some people's packs might be like that. So, like when you're at uni or something, or a school, and they want to keep taking points off, to encourage you to keep handing it in. This was not that. It was just, hey, you can't do what I'm asking, lose 5 points. And what do you know? They lose 5 points, and Andrew Coleman ends up walking away with first place. Now, I guess if you're the person that lost those points, you'd be pretty dirty on it. And look, honestly, Andrew Coleman probably feels like a little bit, dirty, because he doesn't want to get a win from that. He would probably have rather play a 4th round and claim victory, what he'd term legitimately. But I mean, look, I don't think you can fault him. He's done the right thing. But yeah, that's a couple of times that I think Andrew Coleman may have gone through to victory because someone didn't read the players pack, do as they were asked correctly, and I guess it pays to do the right thing, or at least for Andrew Coleman. I don't know, what he ended up getting for his prize. I do know, what the prizes were there, but, as I say, I wasn't there for that. However, I will say this about Andrew's army. I don't know who got best painted. Well, actually, I didn't know who got best painted. It was Andreas. What do you know? And we'll talk more about that in a little while. But Andrew Coleman definitely did quite well when it comes to painting today. And when I discussed his particular models, because I took the little mobile photo lightbox booth thing, and I took a few models throughout the day and used the green screen to put them just outside of a Hobbit hole door. I just sort of thought I'd do something a little bit, fun and different. Probably would have been nicer if I had got there earlier, a bit more time on the setup, and just invited players to come over once they had completed their games, bring their hero or their best painted model or something, and we'll throw them in there and do a bit of a picture. Long-term plan is, well, I could do that, and with the green screen here in the shop, I could actually put you and your model together side by side. But so it's a little bit of a proof of concept. Definitely would work better when I'm here with better lighting, rather than trying to be out on the go, and I didn't feel like lugging all my equipment. But yeah, so I was talking to Andrew about it, and he said that he, well, maybe not solely, but predominantly used a lot of contrast paint in painting his army. And I thought they looked fantastic. I mean, we all know that I'm a crap painter, and I am lazy when it comes to these things. I will never spend the, weeks that some people would spend on painting, 5 models. I'd put like 2 or 3 contrast paints I think I did on my gully and bashed him out in no time. Then the smart move was I think I lent him out to Andrew Coleman, and Andrew didn't like that, so he touched up my paint job. So it works out much better if you just be nice, lend your models out to infinitely superior painters to yourself, and good things happen. But yeah, I shouldn't rely upon that because I shouldn't take advantage of people, but I got lucky in that particular respect. But anyway, so Andrew has done really well with his paint job. He had Dunland and he had them all on a boat. The model, it was just a model kit, but it had some really, like sort of a Viking-y looking longboat. I thought it looked pretty cool. It certainly made the shortlist for what I thought was one of the better display boards today. Other notable display boards, there was... Andreas had a pretty decent display board. It's the one he had from Clash, I'm pretty sure, with his Dwarf Army. So you've probably seen pictures up. I don't have a clue about what his Instagram is, but I'm told Andreas has Instagram. I'm too old for these things. And he would no doubt have pictures all over it, if you go back at least through his history or something, however it works. But yes, his board was pretty good. There was a few other boards that were like, photo frames, and, people have pulled the glass out and, put some grass or snow or rocks or whatever. So hat off to him because, it's a display board and I'm all about display boards. There was someone else, I don't know their name. Adam did actually tell me earlier, but like right this second I have forgotten. He had some Rivendell Knights. He had some old GW Ruins on there, which, he probably, if he had been making that board in a couple of weeks' time, would be using this exact sprue that I'm cutting off now to create some new terrain for it. But he, he had a pretty decent display board. Had some snow effects on it, and according to Jonathan Byrne, he'd used like a green stuff or a couple of green stuff rollers to get some brick textures. So it was quite nice. But the standout one was probably from Adam Jenkinson. So Adam took, things I remember, Alfred and Gandalf. So an army I think he's wanted to get together for a while. Some Lake Town, and what he did was, what do you do when you take a Lake Town force? You make a Lake Town board, and he actually used a couple of different sort of bits. I'm pretty sure it was Goblin Town terrain, of which Adam, I think, has had so much of that stuff over the years. He's literally given it away to people. But anyway, he obviously kept a little bit of it, and he used some of those boards, and he got some resin kits and did some ice effects to make some like little bits of ice that are floating on the water. He used resin to create the water effect. I suspect he's used water effect stuff before, but I don't think he's used the ice stuff before. And I'm sure there's people out there that have used that and 4,000 other things. But Adam certainly, it was quite evident that he put a lot of effort into his painting. He put a lot of effort into the bases of each and every one of his models. It had like little wooden platforms over it, like a bit of water and stuff, being Lake Town and all. And yeah, overall it was a really nice display board. And consequently, he ended up getting a model, which I believe is from another Australian, an Australian podcast Two Towers, I think it is. And they have created a model with a custom profile. I have read the profile, I'm sure, somewhere. But given I don't have the model, and I haven't had to play against it, I haven't paid close attention. I'm sure Adam will educate me at some point in the not too distant future. But yeah, anyway, Adam won that model, which is really awesome. The only other person I know of in New South Wales who has it is Andreas. That's certainly not to say that there's not more people with it. Andrew Medbury had a tournament a couple of weekends ago. Could well have been a person got it there, but I was still unable to drive at the time, so I could not drive a few hours up to go to that particular event. But yeah, Adam's done fantastic. He's done a really good job. I mean, he's been in the hobby for a long time. I don't know if I personally know anyone who's been in it longer. I don't know that I know anyone that I play games against anyway who has a larger collection than Adam. I think I have a pretty large collection. I have way too many armies, if you ask my wife, and my wife hopefully doesn't watch this and finds out just how many I have. But Adam stomps me, and he's forever, gathering a new army all the time, or trying to work on like 5 at least simultaneously. There's new models and he gets them. For instance, I'm putting together one set of this terrain this evening. Adam's probably not putting together any of it, but Adam bought not 1 but 2 boxes of this new starter, and let's be honest, it sure as hell wasn't for the troll. It wasn't for the orcs, and it wasn't for the Warriors of Minas Tirith. He probably didn't need the Rangers, but maybe he'll go, well, dozen of those won't hurt. Yeah, he'll take the new heroes. But yeah, I think it was about getting the nice new terrain, and so that was really good. And I'm sure he will be making a new board down the track. I say joked, but discussed, should he get more starters? But the reality is, given that we fully anticipate a terrain box to come out that has sprue B and C, I think it's fair to say that Adam and myself will be waiting for that box, and then we'll have to grab a few of those. So, I mean, look, it's not like I don't want to sell these boxes, but I'm not saying you shouldn't get one of these, but you maybe don't go out and buy like a heap of these ones just yet. Wait a little while, and we'll probably be able to get something that's got these sprues in it. And 2 other ones. Now, just bear in mind that this has 2 A's and 2 D's. That new box, I don't know, probably will have 1 A, 1 D in it, and probably have a B and a C. And, it wouldn't surprise me if it was, excuse me, like $185, $200. But that's what it is, isn't it? We could probably hope that they make some nice big, start it, sort of, do a whole, city of the stuff and, sell us, 4 sets, for a bargain price. But I can't say that they don't do that from time to time, like they did the Rohan Stronghold box, which sold out, in the first hour. The first time. Then they redid that box. I don't think it sold out nearly as quick the next time. Probably jacked the price up if memory serves. That might have had a bit to do with it. Plus, people that wanted it had already got the Stronghold box, or they had gotten the other individual kits to pad out what they got. I mean, I can 3D print a whole bunch of stuff. I have multiple different like Viking themed files. I have commercial licenses on multiple different Viking themed files. So you know that's good, and it's sort of been done to death. You know, really like back in the day, and when I say this, you know, 3D printing's gone from everyone's got a filament, or no one's got a printer. People are starting to get filament printers. Everyone's got a bloody filament printer. Now it's, you know, half the people have resin printers. So, well, not that I try that hard to, but I don't sell nearly as much in the way of minis or terrain as I used to. But that's alright, because I don't really spend that much time doing it either. And I just print things that I wouldn't mind having if I can do it that way. So if I don't end up making a sale, I just add it to my collection of things that I like to keep. But yeah, it's one of those things. So with my Stronghold box, just excuse me for a second, I made one massive main sort of longhouse for it. I used all 6 house kits to make one mega sort of one, but I also 3D printed a very similar sort of model before I even had that kit. So you know, lo and behold, I've got 2 massive Rhino houses, and I remember using them both for terrain. They're all assembled and whatnot, but as happens with a bunch of my terrain, it doesn't quite get there when it comes to painting it. So neither of those are actually painted. Pretty sure one of them is at least undercoated. Maybe both of them now. I can't remember. They're in a box somewhere up there. I should have a look. I did actually paint the walls though. And that was the very first thing that I was trying to do when I was being taught by John Oliver how to use my airbrush. So I think he got me to practice the very first thing on some barricades for Star Wars Legion, and once I, you know, undercoated like, you know, 20 something of those, because I had a few starters, we went on to doing the walls, and he showed me a technique that I thought was gold, because, you know, I'm lazy, and he basically was like, okay, here's what you do. You just take all your paint colors, of which I have way too many, and we're just going to select 3 that are sort of graduated in color, and then we're going to just, you know, do a zenithal sort of prime, which, you know, so we'll just go black typically, throw some grey over it. I mean, if you want to be real trick, you might throw a little bit of white over it after that, I've found since, but back then I think it was just like we do too. And then we throw on our dark colour, sort of really get that everywhere. Throw on the medium colour, and then try and throw the light colour just like, you know, on the real sort of raised parts, like for those walls. It was like, you know, on the top pointy bit of the wood. And you haven't had to use a shade, you haven't like done any layering, you haven't done squat. You've sprayed 3 things, and you've produced something that is quite reasonable. Now, if you don't think that's like, you know, an awesome time saver, you're crazy. I took the same principle, and it was the next thing I sprayed. I'll get in trouble for this one, but I was teaching from home back in the day of COVID, and while I've got my laptop in front of me and I'm answering questions that kids are asking after the lesson started, I sat there, and I think in the span of about 35 minutes, I painted an entire table of ice terrain. I undercoated it, but then I painted it up with the multiple different colours in about 35 minutes using the airbrush. Sent some photos to some friends, and pretty sure one of them was like, FML, I'm going to go out and buy an airbrush, because if you've done that in that amount of time, and read between the lines, I suck at painting, then clearly the airbrush is the way to go. So I definitely would recommend getting an airbrush. Do I have the awesome skills like someone like Mike Kerr to, paint ridiculously, fine details? Absolutely not. Can I whack on 3 colours? I've got a little bit more than that now. I'd probably do 4 or 5 if I'm trying to be fancy. I did some like temple ruins. I did 5 colours to do those. Didn't take much longer. And again, wouldn't have taken an hour and basically done a table of terrain. Now that one I want to finish off with a little bit of vines, and I'll probably put a bit of shade on it here and there. But honestly, if you're doing it was filament prints, if you're doing 3D prints and you're putting shade anywhere near it, it's just going to look rubbish with those print lines, which you just can't avoid with the filament stuff. But resin printers are getting better and better, and we can print bigger and bigger things. So I know I've printed some like on the smaller side of terrain pieces in resin, and I'm sure it won't be long before people are going, yeah, I'd print whole things in resin. Of course, the problem with resin, if you drop it, it tends to shatter. If you drop a filament thing, it tends to, maybe if there's a pointy bit, blunten it ever so slightly, maybe take a little bit of paint off, but otherwise it's probably unscathed. So, there are some benefits there. If you've got tiny little fiddly bits poking off them, well, that might be different, but if it's a typical piece, that's not going to be an issue. But yeah, so when it comes to terrain, get an airbrush and you will tear through it. In fact, speaking of airbrushes and tearing through terrain, if I manage to cut all these pieces off these sprues, and then I'll probably call it a night and come back tomorrow and do some more, because I'm an idiot and I put the air conditioner on, I'm freezing, and it's getting later. Yeah, my plan is I'll prime this stuff in black and then put some grey over it. I think, although maybe I might use some Wraithbone. I'm tossing that up, but I'll have a think about it. And to be honest, I could totally use a different brand and airbrush it, and it would be cheaper, and I should do that, and I might do that for the black, but simply because I have cans of grey sear and whatnot sitting around, I will probably just use some of that, because it's like, why not? It's quicker than the airbrush. And when you're painting on like really big things, you don't like waste nearly as much paint, so I find it far more palatable to use the spray if I'm spraying terrain than if I was spraying minis and I just know I'm wasting like 75+% of the paint that's coming out. That said, I remember a while back I had a bit of a working bee on, yep, I'm gonna like get through some of my pile of shame with the terrain. I built like almost every bit of plastic terrain that I had sitting around the shop, of which there was lots, and I proceeded to start priming it all. I started off with the airbrush, and then because I clearly didn't pay enough attention to John's lessons on cleaning the airbrush. I later cleaned it another date, but that day I was having no luck. So I was like, okay, that's it. I'm impatient. I want this done. I think I went through about 5 or 6 cans of spray to spray all the terrain up. So I had a lot of it. I basically had, I think it was 2 tables completely covered in terrain. I mean, you could see like the mat / boards underneath it, but you wouldn't have been able to fit a mini between any of the pieces. It was sort of very, very, very solid, and it was just like every sort of starter box kit that I'd been collecting for years. So anyway, they are now pretty much all primed. Most of them have 2 colours on them, so I've got black and then grey, which means when I throw some contrast on them, it should be nice, quick and easy, and obviously that's the absolute best way to do terrain quickly. I did the terrain from the first Warcry box set, and then I did the Mortal Realms, had like basically another set of it, and I did that in contrast paints. So I did make the mistake of I brushed it on with contrast paint, and I was like, oh, I thought I did a really good job, and and then I even dry brushed on top of that, and I was pretty excited about it. I think Adam thought my color scheme was trash. It's like green, but I saw a video that was like it, and in terms of did I replicate the video reasonable, I thought I did. Did I make Adam happy? Maybe not. But what I was not prepared for was when John told me that, oh yeah, you totally could use contrast paint in the airbrush. It'd be way quicker. And then Adam backed him up and was like, yeah. And then I'm pretty sure he showed me an AAT tank that he'd done with Skeleton Horde. And I was like, right, well, I clearly effed that up, didn't I? And so I thought, all right, well, I need to, learn this skill. So I took a box or 2. Well, no, it wouldn't be a box. Took a starter set and maybe some boxes of B1 battle droids. Built them. That takes a long time. If you've played Star Wars Legion and you've done Separatists and you've built battle droids, you know what I'm talking about, alright? Every little one of those suckers is like 7-8 pieces to put together. You've got like 2 parts on the bloody heads. If you drop it, well, I've got concrete here, so it's not too bad. I could try and sweep it up. But if you were trying to assemble in a room that had carpet and you dropped it, like, good luck finding it. But anyway, painful to build. Once I did the zenithal highlighting on them, I sprayed Skeleton Horde on them, and I put I can't remember if it was like Lead Belcher or Black Templar. I don't remember what I put on the guns. Probably Black Templar, to be honest. And they are some of the best looking minis. Well, they're certainly some of the best looking minis I've ever painted. For the effort, I reckon they look phenomenal. And you'd be absolutely crazy to paint B1 battle droids any other way. Unless it was your leader or something. For your squad, maybe put a little extra effort in. But, time per mini honestly couldn't have been 2 minutes to do the actual paint job. So you really can save some time with contrast. As I said earlier, Andrew certainly saved some time with contrast on his most recent army. I hope that he continues to sort of build those skills. Though I know when the contrast paints first came out, Andreas was just like, nah, real painters don't use that. And if that's the case, then I'm probably just not a real painter. It wouldn't surprise me if Andreas is like, mellowed a little bit on that, and that he can see the value in some contrast paints, and then he'll still do all these paint jobs over it. But he might use it to save a little bit of time on some foundation steps, or he might use it on something dirty like terrain. Don't get me wrong, you go through some plots of the stuff. If you're spraying terrain with it, which I have done on subsequent terrain sets, 6 pots of contrast to spray like a couple of boards worth would not be out of the question. I totally have done that. This stuff here, I'm going to spray it. As I said, I started talking about colour schemes with Adam the other day, though when I actually got this particular picture to put up as a background today, it made me second guess what I thought I had decided. So I am possibly going to have a little bit of a rethink on that tonight. Because if I build this tonight or I build it in the morning, whenever I get around to painting it, and like I am actually really hoping for tomorrow, if the weather's half decent, I will paint it. Like I'll prime it tomorrow and paint it. But if the weather's rubbish, well, I might build something else, because I don't want to paint in crappy weather. I could paint in the shop, I don't care about that, but just when we seem to have bad weather, the humidity is different, and I find that the way the paint works is not the same. And I'd rather do it in a consistent manner that I know is going to give me the results that I'm accustomed to, and that's just the way we'll do it, because I'm not in that big a rush. I don't have a tournament that I need this for instantly. I don't have a game lined up at this point in time with anyone. I do expect that I will get some games lined up. I talked to a couple of people today who had also submitted applications to become gym leaders in the New South Wales League. And those people, one of them had come up with shared what he was proposing as his gimmicky theme thing. I won't give that away at this point in time because, I've already asked him about maybe doing a get to know your gym leader type video, and we'll talk about the exact details. But I will say that he's 100% embraced the whole concept of trying to increase the skills of the New South Wales players, and he fully intends to assist the challenger in defeating him with advice, some helpful tips here and there. But at the end of the day, you still have to beat Andrew Coleman, and you can give that man trash, and he'll still come up with something pretty decent. Look, there's probably not that many players out there that can virtually pick up any army and perform really well with it. Andrew Coleman is certainly one of them. Pretty sure Liam Daly is pretty good at it too, but I remember a time he picked up an army that he never played before. He was like, oh yeah, I'll play, and surprise me. I think that's actually really, to be honest, and Liam will not be happy with this, I think that's Liam's way of saying, I'm too lazy to write a list, gather a list, build, paint a list. But hey, if you've got a list and you want to lend it to me and you can put it in the box and just write it up, then yeah, sure, I'll play it at the tournament. But however you want to look at it, Liam has gone to tournaments, played an army, done incredibly well with it, and this is an army that wasn't his, that he's never practiced with, and he did really well. One of those armies, which I think...
Good evening.
No. Which I think was a Hobbit Con. I'm just trying to... If I'm wrong, Adam can, try and correct me. But I think it was Hobbit Con. And, yeah, after the first few games, I think it was, Liam was playing Hunter Orcs, and he discovered something. He discovered that his Hunter Orcs, when they were on foot, in fact had 2 attacks. And he had been playing it up until that point, that his Hunter Orcs on foot had 1 attack. So he could literally double the amount of attacks that he would otherwise have. He probably could do even better. And yet I'm pretty sure he had won however many games he'd played up until that point. So, it's a little bit of trivia for us there. So I'm getting down to the final sort of bit with this terrain. Once I get it off the sprue, I'll probably take a break. And again, whether I come back tonight or tomorrow, I don't know, but I'll come back. I'll sort out the pieces a little bit into the different types, and then we'll be able to have a bit of a crack at assembling the terrain. So given I only have one starter box currently cracked open, I'm going to assemble this first batch exactly as it appears in the instructions, or at least that's my current intention. But when I get the next terrain boxes, plural, I suspect I will mix it up a little bit, because if you can't see it with this, when I go to Builder, I'll definitely show you some of the, well, I say so, pretty much all these pieces, all floor pieces can lock in with each other. So you've got a whole heap of different combinations that you can assemble them in. The wall sections can all join each other. So how long you make the walls, do you make a rectangle or a square building, all that's entirely up to you. And so if we end up with some stairs and some roof pieces, we, presumably, the way this is configured, I think you use most, if not all, these pieces, certainly all the big bits. But there could be some pieces left over. I haven't seen the other kits, but I know that with the Rohan stronghold, 100% there was leftover bits once I built my massive house. And the reason I built that massive house is because I had already printed a whole bunch of smaller houses, and although I did end up, that was for me, I ended up selling a lot of that to a customer one day, because he came in and we talked for a few hours, and then he ended up buying virtually a table's worth of terrain. But he took it from, I think, 2 or 3 different boxes of my sort of stuff. So I think with my Rohan stuff, he took a couple of my houses, and he took my main gates, and I think he took a little bit of my wall section, but I've still probably got I don't know, I think I had it out for a big siege game we had one time. It was about 12 foot of wall, and I have 3 gatehouses, and the 3D printed ones are way better than the GW ones, or I gotta say. The houses, the GW houses, they're really good in terms of, they're plastic, there's a lot of detail in that, and my 3D prints obviously have the layer lines, which is a bit problematic. But I think there's all the character we had, and look, as I said, I've got a couple of different sets with the I'll say Viking sort of theme, Rohan. And some of them are like you do like a building, you know, 4 walls, and then you print a roof part that goes off. Maybe there's like a stone sort of base underlay to sort of raise it off the ground. And then some other sort of ones of them, like that one, you know, another designer, is very modular. You had like wall sections, so straights, corners, you know, T-pieces, and you got roof sections that can go on that. And then he had, you know, thatched roof versus tile roof, which might not be what you want for this, but, you know, if you're just making terrain for some generic sort of medievally sort of table, it'd be pretty sweet. Yeah, so, I mean, you've just got so many options there. Doesn't have the fine detail, of course. All right, I'll give it that, but it's still pretty nice. Look, when it comes to ruins, these ruins here, I know they're going to be nice, all right, because they're new. There's a lot of detail. When I've got these built, I'll grab one of my very first pieces of terrain I ever painted was, I don't even know where all these Adam's probably got some of it, but I've got a few pieces over there. It was the old Osgiliath ruins, and they are crap. I think my technique was prime with black, and then I'll say dry brush with, you know, I don't remember, some grey. And don't get me wrong, like, I got a lot of grey on the ridges, but when I say dry brush, it probably wasn't as dry as it should have been. So it's more like, you know, kindergarten level skill, wet brush that's not like, you know, soaked, and throw a lot of paint around. And look, it looks like stone ish. Adam even let me, you know, put it on one of his tables once at a tournament, probably because he's low on terrain, because, you know, he recognised that I had made the effort to actually, you know, put paint to plastic, and probably wanted to, you know, throw me a bone, but I think deep down he was still disgusted in it, which is probably legit. I mean, he still probably doesn't like putting anything that I would make on an actual table, but that's okay. While I know I am no Adam, I have tried to improve, and I think I've come a little bit of a way there. During COVID lockdown, I actually painted like a lot of stuff. I painted minis, like I say, I painted those B1 battle droids, I painted a lot of other Star Wars minis. In fact, one of the things that I enjoy painting the most, in Star Wars, I have some STLs from, it's like all the Legend stuff now, but down the track there's a character called Cade Skywalker, and there's, you know, a Sith called Darth Talon, and you know, there's a bunch of Sith, there's a bunch of Jedi and other characters in this era, and there was a whole comic series on it, and they made some figures and whatnot. But my son's name, Cade, actually comes from Cade Skywalker, because it was the only like Star Wars name I could slip past my wife into the allowed pile. Because, yeah, she wouldn't let me go with Anakin, you know, go figure. But, yeah, so I got all STLs for pretty much all those characters from that era, and I painted almost all of them up. Are they, you know, like Andreas level? Absolutely not. But for a crappy painter like myself, using contrast paints, an airbrush that I'm, like, you know, okay with terrain for, but crap with minis, and the crappiest of dry brush, I thought they turned out alright. So, yeah, look, I do try and improve, and that's what I guess we all try and do in time. So, as I said, though, look, we've got, you know, yay, a whole bunch of pieces here. Here's my entire file, so that's 4 sprues. Alright, so I need to get the file, file, clean up all those. I'll probably do that off camera because, you know, I rambled to you guys for quite a while here. Over an hour now. Oops, I see a part that I missed. Yes, I've rambled to you guys for over an hour now. I'll clean this up. I'll separate it all out, you know, so I've got all my wall sections together and, you know, all my floor pieces. And then we'll assemble it. But look, try and take a look if we can. There we go. So you can see we got a little raised sort of key bit there and a corresponding hole there. All the pieces of floor have that, if they're big enough to have it, although I may have only got one. And they all lock together, alright? So you're going to get quite decent sort of joins. Yeah, you know, it's a nice, well, I mean, you can even paint it underneath, not that you ever see that, but you can. Given I'm just going to use contrast, I probably would paint it. But when I do my zenithal highlighting, it's going to be pretty dark underneath. So if you put contrast paint over black, it's pretty ordinary. Alright, you really need it over something with, you know, so you can have some contrast, alright? I mean, that's why they sell the Grey Seer and the Wraithbone. Do you have to use those? Absolutely not. Like, if I used beiges and greys from different brands, absolutely I have. Because I buy, you know, 200 mils of that stuff, load it into the airbrush, and it goes a hell of a lot further. As long as I keep my airbrush clean, like I mentioned earlier. If I don't do that, it causes me a problem, and I end up, you know, having to dip into my never-ending supply of sprays. But I'm clearly my best customer when it comes to sprays. I think I'm possibly clearly my best customer when it comes to contrast paints, because, like, I go through a lot of them when I paint terrain. I stock the entire contrast range, but I think there's a few of them that I've never sold a pot for. Heck, even all those new ones that came out just a few months ago, I'm actually yet to crack a single one of those pots. I got so excited about them and like was really hanging out for them. It took a little bit longer for them to come out than I thought, because I bought the new 30k box. I assembled a bunch of models, and I was keen to eat, because let's be honest, those new paints were like totally pitched at that release, and I just haven't got to it yet. I don't know, I was a little sort of stagnated on my 30k army. Interesting sort of story. You'll think I'm all idiots for it. I haven't played a game of 40k for probably like 15 years. I own a number of 40k armies. I have built a number of 40k armies. I haven't painted a 40k army, but I've got aspirations and plans to. Like my tower, I've got, like, you know, colour shifting paint that I purchased years ago to do them in. I've got different colour shifting paint that I want to do my Necrons in. I have a big army on both of those. But I never got into, like, you know, Space Marines. I was just like, yeah, whatever. Then lo and behold, someone tells me, this is the part where you laugh, Blood Angels, Space Vampires. I'm like, you had me at Vampires. You know, as soon as, like, Age of Sigmar dropped the Vampire army, I was all over that like a rash. Haven't painted it, but I built the crap out of it. So, yeah, I do need to do a lot more painting. I find that I quite enjoy cutting them off the sprue. I kind of don't mind cleaning them up. I usually just like watch an episode of TV or something, or a movie while I do it. Glue it together, it's kind of like reminiscent of like old days of Lego. So that's pretty cool. Even like doing the zenithal priming, like it. After that, I don't know, like maybe I just don't like to finish the job, so I can not then have to reflect upon how bad a job I did or something. But I just seem to not really convert it to a finished product. And then that final phase of where you might put that fine detail, or you put on a base and you get some tufts or some vines or whatever. That is like beyond me. Although in saying that, I actually went and bought, I think it was 9 or 10 different tufts today when I was at the game centre. They had a couple of brands there. I can get both of them, but trying to support the store that's running the tournament. So I bought a bunch of tufts there, and I want to use them. My plan was, when I saw Andreas with his fantastic new bases that he'd painted up, he had some tufts on them. I thought, oh, okay, and in those bases, and I will paint some up for us, there's like some flat spots. And I said, you could make that like dirt, or you could put some sand on it, or you could put tufts, right? So I'm going to try and put some tufts or flowers going through the bits and pieces. We'll see how it goes. And then I suppose I'd better put some models on top of it. So that's going to be interesting one, isn't it? Like, do I go and paint some Warriors of Minas Tirith or something up, or do I 3D print something to maybe go on top of them? There are certainly some interesting models that bear no resemblance out there to some other ones. But yeah, who knows how I'll go with that. But anyway, I will leave it there, and we might make another video of how I build this, and then another, which hopefully we maybe will speed that one up or something, and I'll just talk over it. It'll be good practice for me in another type of video edit. And then we'll do one with me painting it, and we'll get this stuff done on the table as soon as we can. Maybe if you'd like to let me know, should I make a Minas Tirith army, or should I make a Numenor army to go with this stuff? I know technically it should be, like Rangers. And I suppose if you want to say make that one, sure. I literally have that one like partially painted. Another COVID sort of job there. But yeah, anyway, we'll see how we go. Thanks for watching, and I will catch you all next time. Bye.